to the Leo Training Podcast with Joe DeLeo. You'll hear in-depth interviews and tips from world-class athletes, coaches, and industry-leading experts to help you train smarter and improve at what you love to do. Train smarter, get stronger, move better, race faster. Here's your host, Joe DeLeo.
Hi everyone, this is Joe DeLeo, and we are back with episode 16 of the Leo Training Podcast. This is part 2 of a 3-part mini-series in honor of Mother's Day, and today's guest is Laila Finska-Linna. Laila was an integral part of the Finnish rowing team throughout the 1990s with a career that spanned well over a decade. Laila is also a teacher, coach, and mother. In this interview, you will hear a first-hand account of her childhood and her journey onto the Finnish rowing team and how she became a world champion in the lightweight women's single scull in 2000. Now, what's even more incredible is that Laila resumed her training while working and raising her young daughter. Now let's roll to episode 16, High Performance Rowing and Motherhood. Hello, Laila Finska-Linna. Welcome to the Leo Training Podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm very excited to have you here. We've got a great episode in store for the audience. You're a lightweight women's single scull world champion, and presently coaching with Finland. So thank you for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Joe. This is a pleasure to me. It's a privilege to be part of your program.
Thank you. I'm very excited to have you here. I know we got a lot of great stuff to share with the rowing community. So why don't we take a moment? You introduce yourself, talk about your background, your journey as an athlete, and we'll start with that.
Okay, so I think that my sporting career started since I was a really small child. I have 2 elder brothers. And in some point, my father told that I became an athlete because he bought bicycles to my brothers, but not a bicycle to me. So I used to run behind my brothers. And my eldest brother, he said that to the downhill, he was able to drop me off, but to the uphill, from year to year, I was reaching him. And finally, I caught them. But I was basically quite a lonely child because we lived in the middle of woods and we didn't have so many neighbors around us. And my parents, they never really did sports. My father, he followed all kind of sports. In the beginning, he was able to hear from radio, but then afterwards, when we got the TV, he was following them all. And my mother she couldn't understand that. And it has been a joke at home that, like, my mother's idea is that the house can be burning, but father is watching TV if there's something sports. And I remember I was 8 years old at the time of Olympics in Montreal. And it was the first time when I saw Pertti rowing. But I think that the more important feeling was to see Lasse Virén running 5,000 and 10,000 meters Olympic victories. And I remember the feeling when my father he watched them. And of course, in Finland, it was middle of the night and I was allowed to stay awake with my father. And also that our boys, they were sleeping, so I could stay alone with my father. And I remember the feeling, like how enthusiastic he was about watching it. And I thought that, gosh, it would be cool to be at the Olympics and my father would be watching that. And that happened in Atlanta in 96. And actually my father made 60 years at the same year. And my eldest brother, he offered to buy a ticket to my father to go to watch the Olympic Games. But my father was too scared to go to USA because he doesn't speak any English and so on. So, but I'm sure that he sat in front of the TV, and I've heard that also my mother did what she usually didn't do. So anyway, I started as a cross-country skier because the small village Maaninga, which is more or less in middle of Finland, we have some pretty good skiers from my club back home, and it was natural way to choose skiing. We had normal winters, so my daily school trip I did by skis, and later when I was older, I also did it in summer times by roller skis. So it was something that I grew up for that. And I was 16 when I decided to go to high school for athletes as a cross-country skier. But during those 3 years, I realized that I couldn't do it as a skier. But anyway, I was really competitive person. Of course, I think it's natural. I had those two elder brothers, and we were competing all the time about everything. So it was something. I wouldn't say that it was my nature, but it was little like that. I learned to compete about everything, and it was why I wanted to compete. But also all my friends, they were part of the sport club, so I didn't know any kind of different world because sport was always part of my childhood and youth. But then when I was at the high school and I was almost ready to finish it, I realized that skiing is not something that I could be a top athlete. And at the same point, I started to think that I have to choose what I'm going to study. I realized that Finland is so small country that for being a professional athlete, there are only small amount of people who can do it or who could do it at that time. And I realized that I need to earn my living. And also, of course, my parents, they both had really poor background. So I was taught for that I need to earn my living by myself. It's not something that you can get it for free. So it's why I chose at that time studying. And my goal was become a physical education teacher, but I wasn't able to enter the university for physical education. And then one of my friends said that look for being a classroom teacher. And I studied some months, actually 18 months, like instructing different kind of sports. But at that time, I also had so bad problems with my legs that I even couldn't ski for fun. And it was little by luck that I just sat on the ergometer. At that time, we had the 2,500 meters national champs. And it was year 89. It felt awful. It looked awful. The result was shit. But our head coach, our Finnish rowing federation, had a goal at that time that he wanted to get more women involved rowing because, of course, Pertti had already won 3 gold medals, and we had also some other male rowers at good level, at the international level, but we didn't have any women at the international level, and basically we didn't have women even international level. So after the erg race, he came to me and said that, why don't you start to row that? I make your programs, you just need to row. And I said, fine, let's start to work. And it was more or less like that.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So you got the program, you started training. So then what happened?
So the coach, he was basically from tracks and fields and didn't know anything about rowing. And of course, it was a little like he couldn't help me to learn to row. And after 2 years, I realized that, okay, he could give me like a kick to the sport, but I needed more help for learning to row. Mm-hmm. And So then again, little by luck, I met in my first Worlds in Montreal. Funny, it was in Montreal in '92. So I met some Portuguese rowers who said that why shouldn't I go to train to Portugal? Because I was looking for a place for training in wintertime with low money. I was a student at that time and I didn't have so much money. So I went to one club in Portugal, in Porto, which is CDUP. It's the university club of Porto University. And I met my first husband. So it was a little like that. By love, I moved my life to Portugal. And when I went to Portugal, I got a German coach, Thomas Inn. He coached Portuguese national team at that time. And Thomas was actually the person who taught me to row and who taught me to train as a rower and taught me also make own race plan. And everything what I've learned for becoming a champion, basically I've learned from Thomas. I worked with him 2.5 years, and during those 2.5 years, I really did big steps, physically and mostly technically.
Excellent. So from there, you really started to develop your abilities as an athlete and as a rower.
Yes.
So how did your results progress during that time period, and how did you continue your progress in the sport then?
So my first world champions in '92, I was in lightweight single and I was 6th. Next year was quite much hassling with my health and doing lightweight wrong way and studying, so I didn't do so well as I wanted, and I finished 13th in '93. But then when I moved to Portugal in '93 and I met Thomas, so I met Thomas at the Worlds in '93 and asked him to coach because I knew that I'm going to move to Portugal. And Thomas asked me that which single am I planning to do, a lightweight or heavyweight? And I said that of course lightweight. That I'm a small woman that I can't do open weight. And Thomas said that he won't coach me as a lightweight. And I asked that why, and he made a question that am I planning to have a child? And I was like, oh yeah, but not with you. But so that was a little. It was a little like that. I couldn't understand that why he couldn't coach me as a lightweight. But then he explained that I'm that young that he doesn't want to risk my health for that I probably go to be mother after I stop rowing. Because obviously I didn't know at that point that he saw it, that I'm not lightweight, I'm not open weight, I'm just a middleweight rower. So we started to train for becoming an open weight rower with 168 centimeters. So I'm really small for being there. But in '95 in Lucerne, I was able to be in the final at the World Cup. And I think that it was really a huge surprise for everyone. It didn't surprise us because we knew my physical capacity, which wasn't so bad. Of course, it wasn't that good as the top open weight rowers, but technically I was so good that I was able to use all my physical strength and power and capacity my way of rowing. And in Tampere, '95 in the Worlds, unfortunately I got sick during the Worlds, but like being ill the whole week and finishing 9th and getting the direct Olympic qualification spot. Anyway, it was a good. Of course, at that time I was a little disappointed because we were like, our goal was to be in the A final or even like we knew that my speed wouldn't be enough for the medals, but like having a good position. But the main thing was that I got the direct qualification spot to Olympics. But then again, like the year 96, it was a sad year. My husband, he had a really bad car crash in January 96, and the year was more or less like surviving. The first 6 weeks, I didn't know if he's going to live or not, and I already like stopped once rowing, and people around me said that don't stop now, that this is your dream and his dream, and luckily I had good people around me who said that just follow the flow and try to enjoy about every moment. It was hard, and I remember sitting in Atlanta after the B final in my boat, and I thought that I just want to go home now. So, and only afterwards I realized that I was lucky to be in the Olympics. It's a dream for most of athletes, and only small amount of people they can really achieve that. But our goal in 95 in autumn was an Olympic medal. I never achieved that, but well, life decided to teach me somehow other ways.
Wow, so that was a very tough year for you. You definitely faced a lot of adversity at that point in your life. But you did continue to row after the 96 Olympics. So what happened after 96? Did you take some time off, or did you continue to train?
Yeah, so my daughter, she was born in May 97, and so of course after the Olympics I had to come back to Finland and finish my studies, because I had already spent like 3 years away from my studies. I was a unpaid full-time athlete during those 3 years, and there was a little like my oldest marks, they started to get too old, so I was a little in a hurry to finish my studies. So I finished my studies, became a classroom teacher, and my daughter was born. But somewhere during the earlier autumn, somebody just said that I can't row because I'm pregnant. And I thought that what the heck? And when I heard that, I decided that just wait. So my goal was to go to national team and to national championships and win the single. So my daughter was 2 months old when I had the first race after giving a birth to her. And I remember that I gave her milk before the race, and I gave her milk immediately after the race.
Wow.
And 1 month later, I won the national championships, which wasn't too difficult because, unfortunately, we didn't have so many women, so it was quite easy to just go to the race and take it home. But then I had the will to train and race, but I didn't find a realistic way to do it at international level. So I raced in 98 and 99. I raced at the national level and won. I guess that both singles and doubles. I had good women in my club, young women. For example, our head coach Ilona, she already trained at that time, and I was sometimes training also with her. But then in 99, I started to realize that it's too expensive. I had that small girl, so I can row for fun, but it wasn't anymore that much fun. Anyway, every time when I went to train, I felt bad about leaving her with someone else, and so I decided that, okay, that's it. But already then I had a goal that I would love to coach, mostly because as a woman in Finland in rowing, when I started, I felt that there was good coaching in Finland, but there wasn't good coaching for women, and mostly not for lightweight women. And I had a goal that I would like to spread that knowledge that I got from my coaches from Germany and and from Portugal, I would like to share that information. So it was somewhere in 2000, maybe January, when I met Michael Deretita, and we had the chat, and I asked Mike that would he teach me to become a coach? And I still remember his silent moment, and he asked that, why shouldn't I row? And I started to laugh that I have this 2.5-year-old daughter. I don't belong, I'm not part of any of rowing clubs. I don't have a boat. I don't have sculls. I'm only person from the family who is earning money for the family that I can't. And he repeated his question and asked that why shouldn't I row? That his opinion is that actually it would be smarter that I row instead of starting to coach now. But during our conversation, I was already thinking that, okay, heavyweight, lightweight, heavyweight, if I row lightweight. But I said, no, I can't. But then we kept sending emails, and I slept 1 week really badly because I was thinking that shouldn't I? And I was counting that how much money it would cost and how to organize life. And then after 1 week, I sent an email to Mike and said that, okay, fine, I'll start to train, but the goal need to be winning the lightweight world championships, that the benefit is too low and the work is too high, that I'm not doing that for just for fun or just for going to international level, that I know what it demands to go to the international level, but I want to make it show that it's worth of it.
Right. So at that point, in your rowing career as well as your life, it was vastly different than when you first started out. You were a mother. You had to think about not only training, that wasn't at the forefront of your mind, but providing for your daughter as well, and trying to make a living, which is something that a lot of elite athletes struggle with, because it's difficult to train full time and have the time and energy to make a living or pay the bills and provide for yourself. So can you kind of start to talk about how the heck did you do that? I'm
still wondering it. Yeah, okay, I've been joking that it was easy to make lightweight because no money to buy food. Right. No. So it was basically maths. I knew where my physical fitness standed. Of course, there's a little one issue was that I had at that time 75 kilos, and so I needed to be 59 for being able to enter to single. And I've been laughing afterwards with Mike that when we decided that he's going to coach me, and then he asked that how heavy am I, and I said, and he didn't show it at that time anyhow, but afterwards he said that he just thought a nice way to say to me that it won't happen ever, but luckily he didn't say it. I started I planned my days by 10 minutes. It was the only way how I could do it. So in the beginning, I just wrote papers that 6:00 I'll walk up and I go to train. Or then another thing was that I made my training so that it didn't disturb Marriot's life. So I trained once per day, really early before going to work, or then really late after I put Marriott to work. Mm-hmm. And so about losing weight, in beginning, so first like 5-6 kilos, it was really easy when I just started to regularly train. So that was piece of cake. But then I realized that certain way I started to use too much than I was able to put in. So I started to get tired. And at that point, maybe like 8 weeks after I started training, I went to talk to one ex-wrestler who had a gym where I also did all my erg trainings. So I basically, all the winter, I trained on the erg, and it was easy to calculate more or less how much energy I go to use during training, and like the average amount of calories what I needed for normal life. So Ville, he counted me a daily dining program where we went like minus 150 calories each day. And it was the easy way. So I was all the time losing weight, but I was doing it with correct way. Earlier when I did lightweight, it was just like that. I went so much at the minus calories that I got tired, and finally I got dead tired. But this was completely different because I had a good plan. I was losing steadily weight until 63, and I was feeling well. So then from 63 to 59, that was disaster. And luckily only Mike saw it. All my social skills, they ended at 63 kilos.
So that was a different approach you took as you came down in weight. You really focused on like a scientific approach and coming down methodically over time, a reduction in calories, getting to a low enough weight where you were still maintaining a good fitness level, but also not at that point sacrificing health.
Yes, exactly. And also that, so I have a feeling that I did something like, so my curriculum had like 28 hours per week, which means that maybe I worked like 40 hours per week. But I calculated that 10 hours is the max what I can train per week. But my 10 hours, it started when I started to pull the erg. I miscounted all, like taking liquid in. So 10 hours was really like the really active working hours. And I'm basically really strong. And I realized that no sense to spend time for weights. Anyway, I had the strength in my body, and also that I needed to lose weight. And as an athlete type, it's more or less that I go to gym and see the weight, so my strength is starting to grow from that. So I knew that I don't need to spend any time for doing strength. Of course, I need to do some like balancing my body and that kind of stuff with my body weight, but it was like that extra work which I could do easily at home. And then I used swimming as like recovering, mostly like mentally recovering, but also like that it was a little like having a massage. I can swim basically okay, so I'm not a top swimmer, but I know how to swim, so I can do it with a relaxed way. So it was simple. I had meal programs, I had the training programs where I trained as much as I could efficiently. Everything that I trained, I like focused on that. And every morning when I woke up, I went in front of the mirror, I put my hands up, and I said that I'm going to win this year.
That's awesome. So cool. So you had everything dialed in, nutrition, your training plan. You were taking a very steady, consistent, methodical approach to your training. And so up to that point, or currently what you're describing, were you still training once a day at that point?
Yes.
Okay. And that was at 5 or 6 days a week?
Actually 6 or 7 days. So I didn't have much resting days.
Okay.
And one thing was that, so I started training in beginning of February. And I went like this February, March, April, half of May. But then last 2 weeks, I took off from the work and I moved to Turku, where Mike stayed at that time. I lived in Imatra near the east border. So I moved my life to Turku so that I could train every day with Mike. And then we went for that twice a day, or like getting more hours for the training. But the first 3.5 months, I basically trained that 10 hours per week.
Okay, great. So that takes you up to you'd taken off from work for 2 weeks, you said. So this is right around May.
Yeah.
So can you kind of round things out? You were continually training through the summer, and then you raced that summer at the 2000 Worlds, right?
Yeah. So when I remember that was awful windy spring in Turku. Basically in Finland it winds always in summertime, but Turku can be a disaster in springtime, and there is also a lot of water traffic. So the conditions, they weren't too easy. But the good thing was that Mike was with us all the time. And of course, like since 96, like 4 years, I just stayed alone in the boat and fooling around and did what I wanted, but nobody was coaching me. So technically we had some really big issues in the beginning of the water season. But luckily I just could easily hear Tuomas' voice in my head, so it helped a lot. So Mike's way of telling things and my memory from Tuomas' coaching, like I was able to join them together, and like I was able to build an easy way for me to learn all technical stuff again. That was in beginning, it was a little hard, but I think that Mike's one of the best values of as a coach is that he's able to explain so that even a little dummy athlete can understand. By the way, Mike always said that I'm his pain in the ass. I can understand why.
Yeah, he has a great way of communicating a technical point and making it very relatable to the athlete. And I think that is probably one of the biggest challenges in any sport, is finding an effective way to simply communicate what you want the athlete to execute. So that's very cool. That's very cool to hear.
Yeah. And of course, one thing was good during the winter time, that I used so much erg. And what I loved mostly about Mike's training program was those twice 2K, like going from little bit harder and harder and harder. And I remember that it was somewhere in end of March. It was at the same time when Lisa Slenke was a USA scholar at the lightweight single at that time. I think that he won a silver medal in 99, and she pulled the world record. I don't remember if it was 5K or 6K, but anyway, I think that it was 6K. But her best time at 6K, no, she pulled the world record of 2,000 meters, and her 6K test was like something like 22:30 or something like that. And my best twice 6K average, they were 22:36 and 22:40. So when I knew that a lady who has a silver medal from the Worlds and is holding the lightweight 2000 world record, and her 6K average is just few seconds faster than my 2 6Ks average, I knew that my physical fitness isn't going to be the issue for being able to win. It's just like matter of, can I make the weight and can I get all my physical fitness to water?
So that was a real good barometer for where your current fitness level was at that time. So,
yes.
So like, as you just indicated, so you knew you just needed to maintain health, get down to the weight safely, and then continue to work on the technical aspects of your rowing stroke.
Exactly. Yes.
So can you kind of take us up to the 2000 Worlds that finish out the trajectory there through the summer and everything?
Yeah. So of course it was an Olympic year, and also we had a plan that we go to try to make open singles. So I was traveling with Mike and with the lightweight single man, Tuomas Hautsonen, all summer at the World Cups. So, of course, lightweight singles, they weren't at the World Cup, but there were important races for us. And the first World Cup was in Munich. And we had 2 rowers and new American coach. And I remember like people going to say to Mike on Thursday, on Friday, that, oh, you are the new head coach of Finland. Oh, good luck, that try to survive. And but in the end of the weekend, I and Tuomas, we won our singles. And the same guys, they went to say to Mike that, oh, really, congratulations, you have been working well. And I think that is, again, like one of the good points about Mike, that Mike like said that it's easy to coach ready athletes, that he's just like taking the road to the finish line. So we were ready athletes. We have been doing really good work, but from reason or another, from different kind of reasons for both of us, it was a little like in middle way. And before we went to Munich, Mike asked that what are our expectations for the race weekend. And Tuomas, he said that he would like to be somewhere in the package, that not in the top, but like he would like to be in a final, and he won. And when Mike made the same questions to me, I said that I want to win. And I remember his face because he was little scared. Didn't say again anything, but afterwards he said that he was planning to say that, oh, cool down, that it's a tough field. But that was the difference, that I knew exactly what I'm able to do. And of course, already at that time, all the results from the past years, they were in the internet, or the test results were there. I studied it before the race. I studied all my competitors, how well they have been doing last year, and what are their test results. So I had the race plan, which Tuomas taught me like 5 years earlier. I had the race plan. I did it again, and I just went and did my race. I really basically didn't care who are on the course, because I had my own plan and I just followed it.
That's great, and that's one of the best things about rowing. It's a very offensive sport. There's not a lot you can do to counter another boat. It's not like American football or soccer. You have to execute your race plan on the day, and that's what you went out and did. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, and of course, then we went to Vienna. I won there. Tuomas was 4th. It was again like a good race weekend for us. In Lucerne. So Lucerne was the Olympic qualification regatta then. But I flew out of the race on Tuesday from the rep. And our plan actually was that we were there just for the qualification regatta, but wouldn't race during the weekend. But when I was out of the race from the rep, so Mike came after the race, asked me that, what about that, would I like to race also during the weekend? And I just didn't think anything at that point. I was like, that I want more racing, and I said that, okay, why not? But then Wednesday morning I woke up and I had almost 64 kilos, and I started to grow that what the heck I'm going to race during the weekend. It was extremely cold year in Lucerne at that time, and it rained all the time. And I remember, because so Thursday I couldn't eat anything. I just needed to sweat and try to get my digestive system empty. Then it was like Friday morning, the first regatta, and I spent like hour and 50 minutes for losing weight. And I went to the scale, little like hoping that, okay, now I'm on the weight, but the scale was like 300 grams over. And I remember the feeling like picking my clothes. It really rained hardly. So picking my clothes, which were all wet. And I was trying to find the driest sweatshirt, and all the time like silently crying inside and feeling like I want to go home. And I remember Mike came beside me and he saw that I'm really feeling bad. And he just started to dig at my clothes mountain and said that try that shirt. It seemed to be dry. He didn't say anything. He just said, try this, go to the erg. And I did like that I was like a robot. And I won the weekend. I won it by 7 seconds. And after the final, I knew that if I'm going to stay healthy the next 2 weeks, I'm definitely going to win the Worlds.
Wow. But it's important to point out it was not easy for you in terms of it was still something you had to work hard at in terms of getting your weight down to weigh in. So that was at Lucerne, and then how much time was between Lucerne and the Worlds?
2.5 weeks. Okay.
So you had about 2.5 weeks, and then you got to the World Championship regatta in 2000. So what was that like when you arrived at that regatta?
Mentally, it was really difficult because I think that like World Cup. So when it's not easy to make the weight, World Cups are that way. They are human. It's only like 3 days, but the World Championships is like whole week. So there's the day in middle that you can eat a little, and then it's a day when you start to sweat again. But I think that the biggest and the hardest moment during that week was that when I stayed in Turku and Marjut, she spent a lot of time with my parents in Maaninga. So already like going to Worlds, I stayed away from Marjut like almost 2 weeks. And I remember at the airport that in Helsinki, I heard some child starting to cry, and I couldn't help that tears, they came up to my eyes because I missed her so much. And then like the all week, not feeling so happy about being close to the weight and not being able to socialize because I was really like disaster for everybody. So I realized that I just needed to stay alone. And I need to lift my hat really high for Mike that he could stand me at that point. But for the semis, I think that I was pretty nervous because, so of course there were a lot of my fellow friends and athletes against whom I raced, and my friends from Scandinavia, from Sweden, Denmark, and of course from Portugal. And everybody, they said that you are going to win. And I just tried to keep my head cool. And I remember I always said that we need to race first. Of course, my goal was to win, but I didn't want to think about winning. I just wanted to think racing. And one thing why I always started to make my race plan from Tuesday was that for the World Cups was that it was when I started to go for liquid food. So I didn't eat anymore, just took liquid inside. But for the Worlds, it was only way to keep my head cool. So every time when I started to think too much about winning, too much food, or too much for losing weight, I started to make my race plan and race it again, racing from the start for the last stroke. And to be honest, I knew every stroke what is going to happen during the race before I went to the race.
So it sounds like you spend a lot of time going through a lot of visualization of the race performance in your mind, how you wanted it to unfold, every stroke, all the way down from zero to, all the way to across the 2,000 meter buoy.
Yes. And Mike always had the habit to say that go hard, which meant like the first 300 meters. Be smart. It's from the 300 meters until 1,700 meters, and have fun. They are the last 300 meters. And it was the semi-morning when I miscalculated the temperature and I lost too much weight. I just lost like over 2 kilos in the morning, which was, seeing my body weight, it was already personally, it was too much. And I felt really bad. I felt really sick, actually. And Mike he came to see me after the scale, so I already was able to take some energy inside, and I just waited for going to the race, and he came beside me, and I didn't want to talk with him, and I was missing Marriott, and I just felt like that I want to now feel self-pity. And he didn't let me go to race in that kind of state of mind. And afterwards, he came to me again and started to ask things and started to tell about her grandmother who passed away like some few days earlier. And everything what he said during that conversation helped me grow mentally. And I remember that his last words before I went out of the tent was that he just said that, race for your daughter, that someday you are going home. And I think that when I was able to race that semifinal day, I couldn't say that I enjoy about doing weight, but I didn't think about doing weight. Because for me, race was at the scale. After that was the fun part.
Right. Yeah. So the big focus for you is making sure that, again, maintaining your health as much as you could and making the weigh in. And you felt very focused about the race itself on the water. You were ready.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, and certain way, I think that I've been thinking that afterwards, because I learn everything by visualizing things. So it's natural way for me to learn, and it's easy way to learn. And it's a little like that I just built the story in front of my eyes, and I just followed the script.
That's so cool. And I think that's a really important point you're making, is that the tendency is to think more and more about gaining better fitness and the output, the numbers, on the stopwatch or on the ergometer screen. But the mental side of any sport, particularly rowing, because it's a race. It's so important.
Yes, and I remember at that time when Thomas coached me, he used to say that, like, every rower at the international level, they can go hard 1,000 meters. Like the good rowers, they can go hard 1,500 meters. The finalists, they can go hard 1,700 meters. And the medalists, they can go hard 1,900 meters. But the winners, they still believe that they can go hard last 100 meters. And I agree with him.
Right. It's being able to pace yourself enough, but continue to go as hard as you can, riding that very fine line.
Yes. And of course I think that, like, I don't want to be rude, but I just think that if there are like any sport where athletes, they are side to side, that person is going to win, or that crew is going to win who wants it most. Because there isn't any more like physical difference. It's completely between ears.
It's the mental side.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So I know this has been awesome, taking us all the way up until the 2000 World Championships. And so what was it like coming down the course for the final after, you got through the semifinal, you're in the A final now. How did you feel lining up in the start blocks for that final?
I don't remember saying this, but Mike told me afterwards that, again, he sent me to the race course, and he started his normal saying that, go hard, be smart. And I just said that no worries, I'm going to take it home. I don't remember saying that, but afterwards he said that he just decided to stay quiet. But I was able to follow the race plan until 1,800 meters. But then last 200 meters, they were really difficult because I felt all the time like starting partying there. But I was like thinking that, oh, there are so many boys that I need to just handle this until the finish line that I won't catch it. It was, I think that those last 200 meters, they were the hardest of my any race because I knew that I'm going to win, but I just needed to stay cool, not like doing some foolish mistake there. But of course, like winning by 7 seconds, it feels awesome.
That's outstanding. Very cool. So kind of let's segue a little bit. I know you took us up through the 2000 World Championships just now. But another topic you really wanted to talk about, and we've touched on this kind of briefly, but let's get a little bit deeper into it now, is what it's like to be that high level athlete and be a mother. That you mentioned several times your daughter as you were progressing through the racing circuit during the summer. But that's something that's very difficult for any athlete. So, could you speak about that a little bit more and share your thoughts on it?
Yes. So I still think that like being a top athlete, no matter in which sport, and being a mother, it's something which seems to be a little bit odd. It's something that mothers should like say that not to be sorry, but anyway, they need to explain that why they are doing that. I'm always wondering that why that question isn't made for fathers. It seems to be natural that fathers, they can do high level sport, but mothers, they should think some way differently. Right.
There's that expectation that it's the responsibility or the role of the mother to raise and take care of the children, and it's has been in the past more socially acceptable for a male to be an athlete and take the time to train. So I'm sure that was in itself at that time very, very challenging, because it was probably much more against the social norms at that point in time, right? Is that correct?
Yes, and of course, like even that in Finland, I'm happy to be a woman and athlete in Finland, but even I heard quite nasty comments about that I'm not thinking my daughter, that I'm just dragging her here and there, and she needs to spend time with grandparents or with father or with whom. And I felt always that it's not fair, because nobody who said those things, they didn't have a clue how much work I did. So how I organized my life so that it disturbed as less my daughter's life as possible. But so when I then stopped growing in 2002, and I realized that my daughter has spent all her childhood somewhere beside the lake, mostly playing with stones or corns. But for some years, I thought that I haven't been a good mother. But maybe like 5 years ago, so my daughter is going to make 19 next, but like 5 years ago, she once started to say that the best gift what I've given to her is like that I've opened the world to her eyes. So she has learned so much about humanity and human race, and about that people are actually the same no matter where we go. We laugh for the same things, we cry for the same things. And I think that those words, they were really like, finally, I got the relief of that I haven't done something wrong when I've been dragging her all around to Europe.
Oh. Well, it sounds like you've done a wonderful job raising your daughter, and I'm sure she's very proud of her mother.
Yeah, and I think that one thing what she knows is that, like my father said when I was small, that just follow your heart. And I think that my daughter, she knows exactly what does it mean.
That's great. That's a very, very important thing, because when you follow your heart, you're following your passions, you're going to be happy. And if you're happy, that's going to be a catalyst to be successful.
Yeah. No, also one thing what I'm mostly interested in following Jeanette Jennings on her path to Rio, like knowing that she's having 3 children and she's following her heart. And she's been having also up and downs during her rowing career. So it's something like that. We need more women like this in our sport who are showing that as well mother can do it. It's a matter of organization.
Yeah, absolutely. The support should be there. If the athlete has demonstrated the ability, they should have the support around them to continue to be able to train if the desire is there on their part, and help them along the way with their family.
Yes.
So, is there anything else you wanted to touch on in regards to that topic?
No. We can go to coaching.
Okay. So, you've had some phenomenal coaches across your entire career. And how has each coach, and you've touched on this briefly, how has each coach helped shape your coaching philosophy, your coaching style? And, what's important to you when you are working with an athlete and developing them? What do you look for? What are important traits, sort of beyond the physical? Because, the numbers are important. You need to have certain physical capacities to be successful. But what are the things beyond that stand out to you?
So now I'm studying for being a professional coach here in Finland, and I'm specializing for youth. So basically, rowers whom I'm willing to coach are young athletes. And I think that the most important thing is to teach them to train, but teach them to grow up and help their own personality to find the correct answers to good questions. I had a privilege to work with several really good coaches. And of course, like everyone during that, I had also some not so good coaches. But one of the main things what Pertti told me was once he said that remember that from every person you learn something. And that's true. From the good coaches, I've learned a lot. And I'm trying to build my philosophy from that. And from not so good coaches, I've learned that I wouldn't ever treat my athletes like I was treated by them. And I think that the main idea for me is that I try not just listen to the athletes. I'm trying to hear what they are saying. Because with the young ones whom they don't know yet so much that what they really want, or they don't know how training should feel, or they can't yet listen to their body and the signals what the body is giving. So it's a lot of communication and trying to teach them to figure out things so that they can learn to feel their own mind and body. And I think that is the main thing what I'm focusing now with the young lady whom I'm coaching and who might be a good rower, but we don't know yet. She's just 18 and she's young and life is open. We don't know if she's going to continue rowing after 5 years or if she's studying something. But I think that every athlete whom I'm able to help in the beginning of the career is going to teach me as much as I can teach them.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I know I've learned a lot, from Mike and you have as well, and you've had some fantastic coaches, and I think that's a great point you make about working with, especially the younger athletes, because you're at a point in your life when you're younger, you're very impressionable. You kind of listen to what the coach says, and you do it. So it's important that they're getting that ability to think openly and freely, and have a chance to, go along a path that they want, willingly. It's not something, forced upon them, and they're continuing to develop their rowing skills, but also as an individual, as a person.
Yes, and of course, I think that one thing what is not so normal in Finnish way of dealing and communicating is not to bring the personal strength, and build on that. And I think that is something what I learned from Mike mostly, because the way how he coached me and how he made me to believe on my skills and my abilities, I've been able to transfer that to school world. And I spent like almost 10 years in the special education with young boys who had some social issues why they couldn't stay in the big classroom. And basically, I didn't teach them and help them to go back to the big classroom by that studies that I got from Teacher Training Institute. It was all the good things what I learned by rowing and from my coaches. And more I think about that coaching is more like teaching, and teaching is always like coaching.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I think that might be like one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard. That's outstanding.
Yeah.
So I usually ask each guest that comes on, I ask some rapid fire questions these are fun, but it just helps the audience get to know you a little bit more. So are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So given your current experience and knowledge level, if you could go back in time 20 years ago, what advice would you give yourself?
20 years ago, it was year of Atlanta. Don't be so damn serious. Just like relax. Fun.
Relax and have fun. That's probably some of the same advice I would have given myself. That's great. That's important because it's supposed to be fun, right?
Yeah.
Good. What's your favorite strength training exercise?
Strength training. Well, leg press.
Okay. Awesome. How has your training changed today compared to 20 years ago? And you can answer that more in terms of philosophy. Because are you still currently training at all or exercising?
So now I haven't had time to do. I'm having 2 jobs and studying, so it's a little lack of time. But I would say that I've learned to listen to my body. So I've learned to be giving more mercy for myself, not forcing myself to do things if I feel tired, or if I've learned to have fun also by doing exercises.
Awesome. That's great. Have you ever had an injury from rowing? And if so, how did it change your training or your approach to training? So
my spine actually. So one of the doctors said that I shouldn't row because my spine is not good for that. So I have some basic issues with my back, which were problems during all my rowing years, and I needed to change my technique a little bit because of that. But also, like being a middleweight rower and lightweight wasn't healthy for me. So I got injuries also because of that. And some of the injuries, they still they go with me as long as I'm going to live. But it's a little like that. I need to work on these issues so that I can live normally.
Right. Great. So what's one thing, junior athletes, that's the population demographic you're working with, what's one thing junior athletes should be doing more of to improve their training and their health?
So I think that the main thing is to having the body in balance, so that all not just like the strength, but also like that they are training so that they are balancing with physical training, technical training, strength training. I think that it should be like a big ball that they are taking all together. Right. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. There should be balance across all of those disciplines. There shouldn't be, if it was a scale, they shouldn't be trying to tip the scale in one direction and just focus on, the cardiovascular component to the sport, or the strength training component, or the technical skill. It needs to be a blend of all of those.
Yeah. And also one thing is like that, I definitely think that even older athletes should have different sports, because there are like sports which are supporting, like in Finland, it's natural. Our legs are frozen so many months. So cross-country skiing is really good supporting sport. Swimming is really good. Cycling is good. So like not doing one thing, because one thing what I made mistakes during my last rowing years, that I spent too much time on the erg, and that killed my ribs.
So you think it's perfectly fine for and encourage rowers to cross train quite a bit?
Definitely, because anyway, different kind of exercise, it also supports your body and helps you to actually support your body.
Right. Plus, it's a good mental break as well.
Yes, exactly.
What's your best tip to improve recovery after a training session?
Proper food, enough food, rest. But also, I would say that like exercise, easy exercise. For me,
so like kind of maybe spinning it out on a bike, like lightly, that type of thing?
Yeah. And also like for me, always swimming worked. So it's something which like really, and it need to be something that can do slow enough. For example, I couldn't use cycling because I have 2 gears. It's like on and off on the bicycle. So it didn't work for me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You have one gear you sit on. It's like you're putting the pedal to the metal.
Yeah.
That's great. So what's one book you recommend everybody should read?
That's easy. It's Paulo Coelho's Alchemist.
The Alchemist. Okay. Alchemist. Okay. Awesome. Well, Laila, this has been an absolute pleasure and an honor. Thank you very much for coming on and sharing your experience and your wisdom. It's been great having you here.
Thank you, Joe. This has been really big pleasure for me.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. That's exciting. Thank you. So just hang on. I'll give you a proper goodbye, and we'll wrap this episode up. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode of the Leo Training Podcast. If you enjoyed the content, I greatly appreciate it if you take a moment of your time, head on over to iTunes and drop a 5-star review in there. Now, be sure to tune in for our next episode as we complete this Mother's Day mini-series. Our next guest will be Karen Smith, Master Kettlebell Instructor and Chief Bodyweight Instructor with Strong First.
Thanks for listening to the Leo Training Podcast. Subscribe and get even more expert training tips at www.leotraining.io.